Hello everyone. This video is going to cover and discuss, continue on from yesterday's discussion on the market revolution with an emphasis today on the impact on society. But I wanted to backtrack a little bit and give a little more global context to the market revolution from yesterday. So what you can see on your screen in front of you is a timeline running from 1750 to 1900. And if you're familiar with world history, this is what historians usually call the Industrial Revolution. It's happening really beginning in Great Britain, the second half of the 18th century, the 1750s, in the textile industry. So you have the inventions of the water frame and the spinning jenny, which helped build the first sector of industrialization, which was in the clothing industry or textiles. And you also have the development of the steam engine powering those machines. So the Industrial Revolution begins in Great Britain, and then it filters out to the United States and also Europe. So Germany, France will also see the Industrial Revolution. But in US history, historians like to divide the Industrial Revolution really into two. And that's because of the two major events you see on your screen in red. The American Civil War divides the 19th century, the 1800s, fairly evenly. So the American Civil War lasts for 5 years between 1861 and 1865. And then you can see the other date there, the beginnings of World War I in 1914. So the first piece of the Industrial Revolution is what historians call the market revolution. And that goes from the early 1800s to the Civil War. After the Civil War is really when you start to see American historians call the economic mass production the Industrial Revolution. And that really ends with the beginning of World War I. But what are some major characteristics of the market revolution? Well, I have another acronym for you, and that's TRIC, like trick or treat. The market revolution is when the factory systems develop to bring goods to markets in a more rapid manner. So we see innovations in transportation. So what does TRIC stand for? TRIC stands for textiles. Textiles was the first sector of factory-based economies. That's where we see the first mass production of cloth, particularly cotton cloth. R stands for railroads. These develop after canals, really in the 1830s and 40s. They start to take off. Iron is the predominant metal used to build the railroad lines and the steamboats and the locks on canals. So iron is the metal of the market revolution. And then C stands for two things: canals, canal building, connecting various rivers and lakes in the United States, typically predominant in the 1820s and 1830s. Eventually the railroads will take over in controlling and moving more product than the canals will. And then the other C stands for coal. Coal being really the fuel of the revolution to fuel the steam engines. We're going to talk more in detail about the Industrial Revolution in the next unit in Era 5, but the Industrial Revolution is really about massive amounts of production. So that acronym would be ROSE: railroads, oil, steel, and electricity. All right, so let's continue on here. And today we're really looking at the social impact of the market revolution. Following the War of 1812, migrants flood into the west. They move west of the Appalachian Mountains up to the Mississippi River. We also see people working in factories, and the new group that's going to be working in factories would be, of course, women. and they're producing things and goods for different distant markets. The growth in manufacturing also drove a significant increase in prosperity and standards of living for some, creating a middle class, but a small business elite like the uber wealthy, the millionaires, and now the billionaires, and a growing population of the laboring poor, those working still at subsistence levels, hand to mouth. You've seen this map before. This map is to emphasize and remind you all, not only is immigration increasing, right, but Americans are buying more and more land in the West, and that'll be the land that's west of the Appalachian Mountains, which is here, but east of the Mississippi River, which is here. So you have the development of new states, such as Ohio and Indiana, Kentucky and Tennessee, and then of course the deep southern states, Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. Population in the United States is drastically increasing because of a high birth rate and immigration. By the 1840s, 1/3 of the US population lived in the West during this time period. So more and more people are settling up in around the Great Lakes, which is covered by this word box here. But these are the Great Lakes. Chicago being in Illinois, right on the Lake Michigan. So what are some of the effects and the impact on society? Well, we have the creation and really the growth of the middle class. It is the fastest growing group in American society in the antebellum period. And there's 4 key characteristics. The middle class lived in comfortable homes. So these are not mansions. These are, typical style homes heated by a wood stove. They do have heating. Some indoor plumbing, but that'll change over the course of the century. More importantly, they owned their own homes. They aren't renting from a larger block. They're also able to hire servants to help out with some house chores, right? A lot of the domestic work is done by immigrants, and a key point of the middle class is that women were able to stay home rather than to work in laboring factories. So if your family earned enough money to have the wife in the home rather than working to earn a wage, we would put that family in the middle class. We also see an increase in the laboring poor. The urban poor were different from the rural poor, right? The rural poor really survived through subsistence farming, just focusing on eating hand to mouth. The urban poor have higher rates of child mortality, infant mortality, and a lower life expectancy. And that's because they're often facing very high rents with very low wages, and they're not making enough money to survive. So we do see an increase in homelessness, an increase in crime as well, and increased likelihoods of a lower life expectancy due to malnutrition, starvation even, and exposure to the weather, especially in New England winters. Some groups that are more likely to be members of the urban poor would be recent immigrants to the United States, widows and orphans because of the inability to support themselves, because they were often paid less than a white man. For example, victims of prejudice, so particularly Irish immigrants and also free blacks, were also paid less than white men in comparison. And those that suffer from addiction and mental illness. Another development that we see during this time period, and this is in the middle class and the urban elite, would be the cult of domesticity. This is a continuation of Republican motherhood, but in a more limiting fashion. So Republican motherhood is the idea that women have a special place in society and a duty to educate and bring up righteous children and educate them in the duties of what it means to be an American. The cult of domesticity is an expansion of that, but it really emphasizes the inner world, or the world of the home. So women are seen as the protectors of morality and virtue, but should stay inside the home where they can be protected from the outside secular world and the dirty business of politics and economics. Their job is really to focus on children and raising and educating morally and moral and virtuous children. All right, that wraps it up for today on impacts of the market revolution on society. Have a good day.